and welcome to another episode of Data Lounge, where we take a more relaxed and fun approach to data. We have with us today Mihai. Mihai, hi, good
Hello.
afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good evening for our viewers, anytime you might be watching
Hello,
us.
everyone. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So, Mihai, what are you going to be talking about to us today? Because I saw you playing a little bit with Power BI in a weird screen I'm not really familiar with. So what are you doing?
So what I would like to look at it is Power BI in an administration perspective.
Okay.
Because most of the Power BI developers, when we are developing solutions for our customers, we are generally not admins of the tenant that we use, but really have to understand the different administration considerations and settings that we have in order to deliver the best possible consumer experience to the report consumers. And even if we are not admins, this knowledge is really valuable because then we can understand why things are working or not, or what kind of asks we had to, what things we have to ask for the admins to change or decide on in the tenant.
And it's great that you have decided to bring today the concepts around Power BI administration, because definitely one of the things that we're seeing, probably you could have some comment around this, is how bigger the implementations of Power BI are becoming, right? They're getting larger and larger in hundreds of users per organization. So now
even thousands.
And in the thousands even, yes, that's absolutely right. So administration is like this new...
Yeah, administration is crucial for large organizations, because for certain reasons. One is obviously security, but what I would like to look at is the consumer experience part. So because starting with Power BI, it requires quite a big cultural change in the organization, and therefore we have to make sure that every aspect of Power BI supports the best possible consumer experience, and that administration is part of it.
Okay.
So we will look at not everything, but I think the more widely used parts of the administration in Power BI.
Perfect. So let's take a look.
Okay. So we have here in my laptop is a demo tenant that we just set up. I published a few reports, dashboards that we can see how it works, and we are admins of this tenant.
Okay.
So let's look at it. So if we click on the settings button and go to the admin portal, we see that we are in the admin portal has all the different things we can set as admins.
Wow, there are a lot of things there that I, at least when I work with Power BI, I'm not really touching at all.
Yes, so let's go through some of those. We won't be able to cover everything, but I want to show you what else. So immediately what we see is usage metrics, which shows the number of dashboards, reports, data sets, and different information about the top users, most consumed reports and dashboards that will help understand the admins the general usage patterns of the tenant. But you will be able to get much more in-depth view. It's just an initial view.
Okay.
So the second thing is users, which is immediately not managed in the Power BI admin portal. It is part of the bigger O365 administration. So we won't look at the actual users, but this is where you manage the users who can actually connect, who has the licenses. So it manages the licenses, the users, and the security groups that we will use in order to set certain permissions to certain group of users.
Understood.
The how it looks again is O365 administration, which could be a separate session on which contains all the details of who accessing the reports, how every part of the Power BI tenant is working. But what we are looking into it is the tenant settings.
Okay.
And for that, as you can see, we have lots of different settings here.
Wow, there is definitely a lot.
So we won't cover everything. So we will just look into, I think, the most widely used ones, and we'll dive into one or two that give you the multiple layers of settings, because there are some things that you can set as an admin at the tenant level, which is why it's called tenant settings. But there are I want to show you how some things are related into Power BI report admin or workspace admin, and how you can have multiple levels or layers of settings based on what level you want to control certain aspects of the Power BI tenant.
Understood. Perfect. Let's take a look.
So let's go through, and then I will skip a few as we go along, just to make sure we can have a good enough look in what we want to focus on. So let's start with this help and support settings, which are quite new. So if we enable it, we will see that we have certain information we can share with our users, like documentation, if there is a discussion forum where we can ask questions, or how to request for licenses, help desk internally in our organization. If we enable it, then our users, consumers, will see these sites or these links, and then they can go and ask for help much quickly, which is also helping to helping with this consumer experience, that they don't feel lost.
Okay.
And as a general approach, just to show you this part, is that how you can apply these settings. So generally, for all of these settings that we will go through, you have the ability to enable it to the entire organization, or to enable it to specific user groups, and you can utilize the Office 365 security groups. So these are not the SharePoint groups, or these are specific security groups that are mainly just a group of people, and the way you use the security groups gives them meaning. So this is where you can say, okay, these group of users will have access to this capability. Or the other thing you can do is you can disable this capability for another group of users.
It's really interesting, because this is using all the infrastructure of Azure Active Directory behind the cameras, right? So these are, we are not having to come here and create our own users and maintain our own passwords or anything like that. We're consuming what we have already available in Office 365 and, of course, Azure Active Directory, correct?
Yes, they are fully integrated. The security is fully supported by Azure Active Directory. So all the capabilities that it has, Power BI inherits, and this is why we can use those security groups that was created. So this is why we don't have any kind of user settings inside Power BI, because it's managed by Azure Active Directory.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so, but let's not change here anything for now. Let's go to the second thing we can set. And this is this receive email notification for service outages and incidents. So it's less about the consumer, it's more about the admins, because Power BI generally is managed in the cloud by Microsoft. So if there is anything in that data center where your Power BI tenant is managed, any kind of service interruptions, then generally it will send an email to the Power BI admins. But that in your organization, it might not be the admins who are actually responsible for this kind of handling these kind of issues, or maybe telling the consumers, Power BI consumers inside the organization, that this event happened. So you can enable different user groups to receive this email to handle these kind of incidents.
This is very useful, definitely, when we're talking about the scenarios where now, because Power BI enables more business users and more analytical users to be the owners of that visualization experience, and probably if they are distributing that content to other people, they might be the ones to actually need the information to know when something's going wrong, so that they can manage those expectations, right?
Yes, and the other reason is that sometimes one tenant is shared in a group with multiple companies, which has their own IT help desk, and everyone wants to get notified if something happens, so they have their own processes, and this can help distribute this information more effectively. Okay, workspace settings, it is quite an important one. Is that the ability to who can create workspaces. So workspaces is this organization, the way we organize reports, dashboards, data sets inside Power BI, and we want to make sure that it is created in a controlled way, because what we saw in many occasions that because generally everything is enabled, or most of these settings are enabled by default, consumers just start creating workspaces one after the other, and in a month we end up with hundreds of workspaces that doesn't have anything in them, or just one report, and nobody uses it. Nobody else knows about it, and you cannot find the valuable information, so it has to be controlled. So generally most of the settings that we will talk about, our recommendation is not to enable it for the entire organization. Always have security groups. It can contain a large amount of users or large portion of users, but it always has to be controlled few security groups, because that's the most effective way, because the entire organization might mean that users who should not have access to certain capabilities will automatically get assigned that capability. This is why security groups is a more risk-conscious way to deal with these.
Understood.
Data sets across workspaces. This is also quite a new addition. What it does, it enables the reusability of data models that we create. So previously, if you publish the report and the data set together from Power BI Desktop into a workspace, it can only be reused, create new reports out of it in the same workspace. But now, by default, it is enabled that you can publish reports from the same data set in all the workspaces where you have access to publish, where you have the right to publish, which enables a scenario that there can be a centrally managed data models, like finance manages their finance data model, but they enable the other parts of the business to use that data model, but they want to make sure that everyone uses that one version of the truth, that what they prepared, and they are it's helping spreading the responsibility to giving it to the right set of people. So now one group of people can be responsible for the data set, and another group of people can be responsible for the report creation.
Yeah, and particularly with the capabilities in Power BI, where for some months already, of course, we've been able to work in more sophisticated querying for the different ways to extract the data and mash up the data. Definitely, it makes sense having this capability of, as you will say, separating responsibilities between the person responsible for the data model, or the team responsible for the data model, and the teams responsible for different reports and the more probably the most pure visualization experience, definitely. So it's a very handy feature here.
Yes, and it was enabled a few months ago when they added this capability to share data sets across workspaces. So now we got to the most interesting part, at least this is what is discussed most in all of the organizations, is the exporting and sharing capability.
Oh, definitely.
Because that's obviously it's quite a big security risk if it's not set correctly, but also it is greatly affects the consumer experience, what the users can do with their reports, with their data. So let's go through these, and here I will go a bit deeper into one or the other aspect to see what other parts in the Power BI tenant you can affect the experience and the things you can do. So let's go to the first one, this share content with external users. So this is the ability that anyone that is not part of your tenant, doesn't share the same domain, will have access. You can share it to others, which is simply just typing in their email addresses in the sharing and then it giving them access. obviously, it should be tightly controlled by enable just a small subset of users to do it. It can be monitored, obviously, but that is quite an important settings in that regard, because the data will be accessible by someone outside of the tenant.
Okay.
Let's say, what poses the biggest security risk is the publish to web.
Yes.
The publish to web is an unsecured way to share the report. What it means, if you publish a report to the web, if you know the URL, you can see the report. There are no security, nothing applied to it. And so therefore, generally it is switched off in most of the organizations, but there are some organizations, let's say, want to share their financial information because they are publicly traded companies, or they are companies who want to share information with their consumers, so they don't want to, which is publicly available data,
yes.
or maybe government organizations, they are using it, but still it has to be controlled, because that is quite an important aspect.
Okay. This publish to web, does it require any special licensing for those organizations that are doing it? So it's just an out-of-the-box capability.
Yes, and what is really great is that it enables large consumption from the public, which means that there's no way limited by the number of visitors of the report, or the actual traffic it generates. So it is unlimited. So if the report is accessible, it will be accessible to anyone. So it is used more and more widely by newspapers or government organizations to publish information in a more easily accessible way in Power BI visually than in Excel files or other ways that are a bit harder to understand the data.
Okay.
So export data, this is another thing that we will talk about, and this is what we will look into in more details. So what it means is that it actually controls not just one, but multiple things. So as you can read here, that it gives you the ability to export data from a visualization in a report, but also it controls Analyze in Excel and Power BI Service Live Connect, which means if it's disabled, there are no way to connect to an existing data set to create new reports. So it's actually kind of counters the sharing the data set in multiple workspaces, because if you turn it off, you won't be able to, or you won't be able to connect with Excel to that data set to analyze the data. So this is the most widely debated, how we should set it up. Who should have access to this capability? And still, a lot of people would like to see, I really like the visual capability, but I like this subset of data in my Excel file or something. So they want to have this right-click export capability.
Okay.
So if we disable it, it will disable everything. So what can we do if we cannot disable it, because there are certain subsets of users who need to use it, but still I want to control it in a different way. So for that, I have to go into the workspace, what we have, and we have a few reports here. And if we go into the report settings, what we see here is this export data.
Okay.
And in this export data, I can control it by report, what kind of export capability is there. So what you can see, I can give the summarized data, which is just actually what I see in the visual can be exported. Summarize the underlying data. The underlying data is what actually creates this insight. So all the row level data. It is limited by the number of rows.
How many rows?
150,000 rows, I think.
Okay.
And you can turn it off by none. Okay. So that is one capability where you can have this, so you can do it by each report. You can decide, the report author or the admins can decide, for this report I want to enable export or not. But there might be some reason when this is not granular enough.
Yeah.
So I want to get more granular.
Okay.
Let's go into this retail analysis, what we have here. And we have our retail report, and we are quite fine to enable our users to export data on this sales report what we have here.
Yes.
But if we go to the profit report, I don't want them to export profit information.
Clearly.
So
probably the sales information is fine, right? If we're talking about units and volumes, but if we're talking about profit, that is already very sensitive.
Or PII information, personal information that I don't want to get in an HR settings, really personal information. That is, you can view it, but you cannot export it. So what can I do here? So if I have the right to edit a report, and let me select this report. So if I go into the formatting settings and scroll down to the visual headers, what I can control in the visual headers is what I would like to see. And what we see, this export capabilities is behind these 3 dots.
Yes. The more options.
The more options, and if I turn off the more options, and then I save my report. Always save my report. Reading view, save. Then I don't have that anymore. As you can see, I don't see that 3 dots, so I cannot click on export, and therefore on this visual I'm not able to export the data because there is no way to do that.
So we basically have seen 3 different ways to control the export data capability, right? The first one at the full tenant level, which is a yes, no, so on, so on, so on. We also have the report level one, where we can say for the full of the report, allow only the summarized or the detailed data or none at all. And the third one is a visual also control to say only this particular tile within that particular area of Power BI visualization is where I can disable that option that includes that export data capability, correct?
Yes. Okay. So there are these 3 different levels. So as you can see, I have really granular control over what to, where and how I can export the data. So let's go through the others, and then we will see what other settings we have in this export data, because there are certain organizations who really want to lock it down as much as possible, so you can view it but you cannot export it. And you think about exporting the data, it's not just in CSV or Excel, actually just printing it out or exporting into other formats can be a problem. So this is when this export reports to PowerPoint or PDF presentation comes into play, if you want to enable it or not. And also the printing can be disabled or enabled. Nobody can prevent to do a print screen, but at least Power BI doesn't give you the capability, so you have to be intentionally do something.
Getting the information,
Yes. So let's talk about first this allow external users to edit and manage content. So what it means is that if you give them access to a content, you can also give them access to modify that content. So to what you saw me doing, editing a report, you can enable the guest users to do that also, which might be useful if you are working really closely with your suppliers or some third-party organization where they are using their own tenant to log into your tenant and not giving them, creating them a user in your tenant.
Yes, correct. Be at the guest users capability in Azure Active Directory, where we can actually invite users from other domains as guest users. Correct.
Yes, and now with these settings, you can give them the ability to edit and manage. So let's do the last 2 in this section. Certifications. Certification is quite a new capability, which came with the sharing data sets, because now if you can share data sets, it means that you will see a lot more data sets accessible for you, because you will see it from all of the workspaces,
from all of the workspaces,
not just the one you are in. So we really have to understand which data sets are the really valuable ones that are, we can be sure that they provide a good quality of insights. So what we can do in the dataset level, let's go to settings. So this is this endorsement.
Okay.
And so there is a default, And we have two other settings, promoted and certified.
What are each one of those certified?
So promoted can be done by the report author who published up the report. He say, I think it's a good data set.
Okay.
Please check it out, and it will give you a promoted badge. A certified generally should be limited to a certain subset of users who are really understand and can actually validate a data set. So therefore, they are the ones who have the ability to certify it, to say, okay, this is retail data set. So you have to give a description, and if you apply this one and we go back to our data set, now I can see it has this certified badge. And when I when I connect to Power BI desktop to my Power BI data sets published in the service, I will see them on top. So it will bring them on top and we give them this certified badge, so I can see, okay, if I want to create a report for the retail business, I have to use the retail model.
It's very interesting to have this capability of knowing effectively that now we can use and produce so many data sets to be able to differentiate and promote within the organization, within the business community, hey, these ones have already been certified probably by one business analyst that is very familiar with the concept, knows that the data is perfectly accurate, and others that might be more in terms of promotion and saying, hey, organization, I have this brand new data set, give it a try, play with it because it's new. So it's a really, really interesting capability, and it's very, very, very clear for anybody accessing.
And easy to use. And the promoted can be good to validate your data, what you have put together. So, and what is quite new is this lineage view that just came yesterday, maybe.
Okay.
So if you click on it, you can actually, if you really want to know where are your data is coming from. So as you can see here, this is my retail dashboard, and I can validate that the retail dashboard is coming from the retail analysis and the product analysis report, which is coming from the retail model, which is a certified one. So I can be sure what I see in the dashboard is coming from a certified report. It is really, really valuable. It is really new, just came out 1 or 2 days ago.
Fantastic. That's a really nice capability.
Yes, it is. It is. So let's head to our last. So this is what you can control with certification. Who has the ability to certify it?
Okay.
And email subscriptions. Email subscriptions will, if you want to be able to subscribe to a dashboard or a report page, then this enables you to set the scheduling, and you will receive an email with a print screen of that report page or dashboard and the link to that, to go there to see in detail if you see anything interesting.
Okay.
So let's jump a bit with apps and content packs, because that would need us to do another.
That's a massive topic altogether.
That's a massive topic. So what I want to focus on, last thing is custom visuals.
Okay.
So the custom visuals, the reason why they're interesting, because Microsoft opened up the Power BI for community developers to create new visualizations, which is really good. But because they are created by a third party, basically they are not validated by Microsoft.
Okay.
So you have to decide yourself if you are comfortable with using a visual, which is programming code, inside your report. And the main reason is that some visuals, by definition, need to send data outside of your tenant in order, because there are some AI-enabled visuals that needs to process your data in their resources to create you the insight you want. So you want to know if you want to enable it. So you can disable altogether the custom visuals, but it is not necessary to disable it, because there is a process that Microsoft introduced calling certification, where you can certify a custom visual. Microsoft goes through the code, it checks the quality, and also makes sure that it doesn't contain anything harmful, like not sending data outside. It can be used offline, and you can limit down the use of custom visuals to only be available for the certified ones. So therefore you can be comfortable.
So you're already relying on that process that Microsoft has put in place to actually say, yes, these are custom visuals, but these are certified, so they are safer to use.
Yes. So that's, but one important aspect of this, this admin setting, what you set here, only limits the access to custom visuals in the service.
Okay.
So if you develop it in the desktop, it doesn't limit.
It doesn't limit it. So I can just drag and drop and continue.
Yeah, but that's also security risk, because it means that while you're developing the report, it can already send out information that you don't want to send out. Yep. So what you can do, you can apply group policy. Someone who manages the IT infrastructure can create a group policy that in the desktop limits the use of non-certified custom visuals. So it can be fully secured.
Right.
It's not part of this admin setting, but just it is important to know. And one last thing that I want to look at it for now is dashboard settings, data classification. What it means if I turn it on, this is where I can set my classification levels for the dashboard level. And what will happen in the near future, that these classifications like sensitive data will flow through my all of Office 365. So if I export some data from a classified dashboard or a report that is in a classified dashboard, that classification will be part of, let's say, the Excel file. And if I add rules to that classification, not here but in Office 365, to say it cannot be sent outside of my tenant, then it will block you to email that information outside of the tenant, or actually just block you to export information. So classification is also good to secure your most valuable data.
This is a very interesting capability, without a doubt, to control and to be able to classify, because we're seeing classification options and across multiple areas within the Microsoft platform, right? We're seeing it in Azure SQL Database, and now we're seeing it coming here in Power BI. So it's very interesting to see that consistency all across the data platform.
Yes, so that's what I would like to show you about. I don't know if you have a bit of time to. I would like to show one more thing.
Let's do one more thing.
One more thing.
Just one more, only because we have Mihail here, that's it.
Okay, so what I would like to show is about controlling the experience so we talked about how you can securely export info, so who can export what part of the data, but there's one more thing, who can see actually what part of the data. So we have dashboards, reports, and data sets.
Okay, let's take a look.
And so what I would like to do, so let's go back to the list view. So I have a retail dashboard, and that retail dashboard comes with a retail dashboard, and that comes from a retail report, which connects to retail model. And what I would like to see, because some of my users, I want them to give access to the dashboard, but not to the report.
Yes.
So what I can do, I go into the data set, select Manage Permissions. But I see that my colleague Ayesha has access to the data set.
Okay.
Has access to the dashboard.
Yes.
But doesn't have access to the report.
Ah, okay.
So if I log out.
Okay.
And log in as Ayesha.
So this particular user doesn't have access to one of the elements of the overall architecture, right? So if we think in terms of Power BI, we have the data sets, we have the reports, and we have the dashboards. But it seems that right now you're trying to get to control that particular user, so that user is only able to see a part of the dashboard, correct?
Yes, so let me quickly log in.
Okay. And again, I think it's important to highlight that all of these, when we're talking about security in Power BI, we are consuming all the information that is already within Azure Active Directory, whether it's because that directory is a native cloud, or because that directory is coming from the result of an integration with an on-premises and ADFS. It's really not relevant. It's just leveraging all the information that we have already in that Active Directory, and we see how it's using all that via the different security groups and all the different users.
Yes, so I'm logged in as
Okay.
Ashay. And if I go to the, I just see the retail dashboard here.
Yes.
So if I click on the retail dashboard, as you can see, this error message appears. But what it means that I can see the dashboard, but if I click on the tile, it doesn't go to the report. So it still refreshes, it still shows you the dashboard information, but I cannot see the details. That scenario can be really good for controlling who can see what in that sense. That's
a really cool demo. Thank you very much, Mihai. That's absolutely brilliant. And definitely thank you very much, Mihai, for joining us today on the Data Lounge. And a special thanks to all of you watching from wherever you might be watching this. We hope you have found this interesting, a bit useful at least. And if you like this, please don't forget to subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.